Canada's got to find a new ambassador to China. Dominic Barton stepping down from the role at the end of this year. Guy Saint-Jacques is a former Canadian ambassador to China, and he is in Montreal. Mr. Saint-Jacques, very good to have you on the program. Lots to talk about here. So let me start. Should Canada send diplomatic representation? Should government ministers go to any part of the Beijing Olympics?
Well, I think the minimum we can do is to boycott the opening ceremony of the Olympics. I think we have to join the United States, and we should use the upcoming summit on democracy organized by President Biden, and that will take place Thursday and Friday of this week, to try to rally more support for this boycott. I think this would send a very powerful message to China.
So let me play the counterpoint for a moment, and that is that Canada engages in billions of dollars worth of trade. People are going to stores right now buying stuff that's made in China, and many of our businesses are selling things to Chinese companies and to the Chinese government. Is a decision about whether Canadian government ministers go to the Olympic Games at all, does that really have any impact, symbolic or otherwise?
I think it has. And in fact, when you look at our trade export this year, it's going to be a banner year. We are going to break the record that was established in 2018. And that shows that China will always need our copper, our iron, our barley, our canola. Mm-hmm. And this gives us more leeway. And we know that President Xi Jinping is going to use the Olympics for political purposes. And so if, together with other countries, if we are in good company and we boycott the opening ceremony, in fact, this sends a message that we are not going to condone the bullying and the bad practices that are followed by the regime in Beijing.
Something that's a bit puzzling, I think, sometimes for people is, what China's goal is. So you're suggesting that China perhaps would take a hit if government ministers didn't show up. And yet there are allegations of re-education camps. Some have talked about them in the sense of concentration camps relative to weaker Muslims being forced to go there. That seems to be under a dome. Do the Chinese, what's the end game for them? Do they care what the rest of the world thinks about them?
Well, I would say yes and no. And you have to understand that the issue of faith is very important for Chinese. And therefore, the more countries that would boycott the opening ceremony, the better it sends the message that, we will not accept the bad behavior of China. But on the other hand, it seems also like if China is saying to the world, we have become so important, you are so dependent on our markets, that you have no choice but to agree to let us do what we believe are our own business, and we don't want you to touch on any of our red lines, either related to Xinjiang, to Tibet, mm-hmm. or to Taiwan or Hong Kong. And I think that for democracies, there's a lot at risk here in terms of our values. We have to stand together, we have to be firm, and we have to push back.
When's the last time you were in China?
I was there 3 years ago. I went in November 2018, just before the beginning of this sad episode with where the two Michaels were arrested.
And you have been very critical of some of the actions and approaches of the Chinese government in those intervening 3 years. Do you think you'd be welcome back in that country today?
No, and in fact, if I look at the decision that Ottawa has to make, in fact, there's a third one that you have not mentioned. It's Huawei, and the government has to decide whether to allow Huawei to participate in 5G development. Mm-hmm. Of course, this means it will be a succession of bad news. No participation in the Olympic by no political representation, no place for Huawei in 5G, and then we have to present a request for agreement. I think we would be well served by a career diplomat, someone who knows the countries, the political system, the culture, and who can be tough, because it will be very difficult in the next months and in the next few years.
Monsieur Saint-Jacques, we've sort of temporarily lost your video there, but I can still hear you, so I will continue on that line of questioning around Canada's next ambassador. We have had now the outgoing ambassador came out of the business world. The previous ambassador to that, John McCallum, had a long political career that was preceded by a time as an economist. What do you think when you say a career diplomat? Why the difference now? Why the change?
Well, a political appointee will not arrive with all the knowledge about how a complex country like China functions. And he knows also how an embassy works. He knows the kind of behavior you can have, the kind of question you can ask at meetings. And especially if someone is attuned to the Chinese culture, I think, you can do a lot better. Someone like Mr. Barton, I think he has done a good job, especially to free the two Michaels. But there were lots of things that he didn't know about the dark side of China. And again, at this stage, I think because of the importance of the relationship with China, I think we would be better served by a career diplomat.
How can a country as small as Canada, in relative terms on the global stage, actually act as a counterweight against a country as massive with such enormous growth as China?
Well, of course, it's true that on our own we are, and China, the way that China treats Canada now, it's clear that they feel that we are not very significant, and that's why we have to work with allies, because it's not only Canada; it's all democratic values of our allies that are at stake here. And again, I think we should use the upcoming summit on democracy in Washington to try to make inroads, to try to better coordinate our policies and our positions, to send a common message to China that they are welcome to be a superpower, but they have to abide by international treaties, international rules, and stop acting as a bully.
Were you surprised at Ambassador Barton's departure after 2 years?
No, because in fact, I said to a number of people right after the liberation of the two Michaels, Mr. Barton will be out of there by the end of the year. It's difficult for him because his wife lives in Hong Kong and he cannot see her regularly. When he goes back to China, he has to go through 3 weeks of quarantine each time. I think also he has started to receive offers from the private sector. He knows that the relationship will remain difficult politically. So I think he has probably concluded that it's best for him to go back to the private sector.
All right. Mr. Saint-Jacques, thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.